Comedy legend Louis Black is bringing Goodbye Yeller Brick Road, the final tour, to Steelhouse on Sunday, February 25th. Tickets go on sale Friday, November 17th at 10 a.m. Get yours at steelhouseomaha.com.
The holidays start here at Baker's with a variety of options to celebrate traditions old and new. Whether you're making a traditional roasted turkey or spicy turkey tacos, your go-to shrimp cocktail, or your first Cajun risotto, Baker's has all the freshest ingredients to embrace your traditions. Baker's, fresh for everyone.
We've locked in low prices to help you save big store-wide. Look for the locked in low prices tags and enjoy extra savings throughout the store. Baker's, fresh for everyone.
Hey, it's Storyworthy. Today on the show, writer and stand-in Joe Coyle talks about what it was like standing in for George Clooney.
Cop gets out of the car. Robin has the window rolled down, hands him his license and registration, and the cop shines a flashlight in both of our eyes. We're both nervous. We don't know what's going on. By the time he comes back, I realize what's going on. I say to Robin, I said, dude, take a look in your rearview mirror. Point it at yourself. Look at us. We've got a mask on. We're dressed in black. The guy comes back up and says, where are you guys coming from? We're stand-ins. We work on Batman and Robin. He stands in for Batman. I stand in for Robin. And the guy's like, yeah, right.
Today on the show, writer and Hollywood stand-in Joe Coyle talks about what it was like standing in for George Clooney during the filming of Batman. Stay close.
Hey, it's Joe Coyle, and you're listening to Storyworthy.
Welcome to Storyworthy. My name is Christine Blackburn, and I'm coming to you from Los Angeles, California. Whether you're a longtime fan of the show of almost 13 years, or you're a brand new listener, welcome to Storyworthy. Now, recently, you guys, I've been taking a break. I'm sure you've noticed, and I've been working really hard on my other show, My Life in 3 Songs, which I'm dying for you to listen to, by the way. If you haven't heard My Life in 3 Songs, do yourself a big favor. Go over to Spotify and follow My Life in 3 Songs. I talk to comedians about the 3 songs in their life that have inspired them and impacted them, or really just impacted, to tell you the truth. Because it's not their favorite songs, but it's like songs that paint a picture of where they grow up and who they are. And I'm just so thrilled with it. So please go over, check out My Life in 3 Songs. But now I got my hand around My Life in 3 Songs, and it's on its own now. It can do its own thing. I'm with it every week, but now I got a handle on it. So I came back here to Storyworthy, and I'm going to be bringing you guys all brand new stories this year, 2023, and we're going to kick it off right now with a really interesting man who, right before I took the break about 2 months ago, I had this other guest on the show, Bob Crane. Bob is a writer, and he talked about how his father, Bob Crane from Hogan's Heroes, was murdered. I don't know if you recall that story, but it's an unsolved murder to this day. And anyway, Bob Crane told me there's another guy I have to meet. There's this other guy. I'm telling you, Christine, he's so great. I'm telling you. So anyway, I took Bob Crane's word for it, and he's here today, Joe Coyle. And another thing I found very interesting about Joe Coyle is that he lives in Sewickley, Pennsylvania, where my sister lives, and that's right there outside of Pittsburgh, where I'm from. So I thought that was very cool. You know, that there you are, Joe Coyle. You are a Pittsburgher, right?
Well, actually, I grew up in Philadelphia, but I've been in Sewickley for 18 years. So you know Sewickley, so 18 years is still considered a newcomer, kind of, sort of. But
that's so funny. It's true. Yeah, that's very funny. But you don't have the Philly accent either, which is good.
Well, thank you. After about 2 or 3 beers and sitting around with my siblings, it would come out, I guarantee you. But I've lived all over, and I think people have asked me that before, and I think it's because I've lived in so many different places, it just kind of flattened out.
Right. That's so funny. Well, you bring forth the topic today, standing in for Clooney. And this is such a fun topic because, of course, it includes George Clooney, who's like the most handsome man in the world. I mean, across the board. And you're a very handsome Joe Coyle. So if you're a stand-in for him, does that mean you're his size? Is that it?
Generally speaking, I think at the time when I first started working for him, our weights were similar, but over time, we kind of grew a little bit differently. He was, being a star, you really pressured to keep your weight down, whereas I spent a little bit too much time at the craft service table. But I looked a lot like him at the time. I mean, we really could have been brothers, and I never thought it when I first started, but people kept telling me, "Oh my God, you could be George's double. You could be George's double." And that was right around the time when he was starting Batman and Robin. And a friend of mine who was working on ER said, "Hey, how would you like to do it?" And I said, "Sure. I have no idea what a stand-in does, but yeah, sure." And he said, "But don't worry about it. Just, keep your mouth shut, pay attention, and do what they tell you to do." And having 12 years of Catholic school experience, I was primed for the job.
That's very, very funny. Now, wait a second. Did it that easily fall into your lap?
It did. And I'll say this, and you know this because you've done it yourself at some point. You lived in Pittsburgh, and at some point you decided to pack up and go to L.A. And I don't know your personal story, but many of my friends' personal story was that, oh, my friend is going to hook me up when I get out there. And 99.9% of the times, you can't even get them to answer your phone call or meet you for coffee or whatever it may be. Whereas I had a very good friend who did work on ER, and he's just a really good guy. And he said, if you make it out, I'll get you on ER as an extra, and you can get your SAG card, and then you can go back to New York. And I'm like, I'm not going to be an extra because I thought I was really something. I had done plays, and I was principals in commercials. Of course, they were all non-union, but I'm not an extra. I'm a principal. Well, I was out there for about 2 weeks and realized how difficult it was to get an agent and everything else. And finally I said, you know what, why don't we try that extra thing? And I went and I worked for, as you know, if you get 3 vouchers as a background artist, you're in SAG right. If you can pay for it. And so
if you can afford it.
If you can afford it. That was the other part of the problem, which I was able to afford, fortunately, at the time. And but yeah, so I got in, and during those 3 days working on the set of ER, people kept asking me, "Are you George's double? Are you George's double?" And I'm like, "No, I'm just a schmuck like you." And then my buddy came up to me in the last day and said, "George is getting ready to start Batman and Robin. How would you like to stand in for him?" And I'm like, "Sure."
Oh my God!
What does that take?
That is incredible.
But that will never happen.
Wow.
Lightning will not strike twice. I'm here to tell you that is a story, and it's unique to me only because pure luck and a very good friendship with. I'll give a shout out to him, a buddy of mine, Tyrone Pinkham. He was Anthony Edwards' stand-in and a good friend of Anthony Edwards, and that's how it happened. But that does not happen every day. Actually, it almost never happens.
No. I mean, this is incredible. Now, you're going to tell us a story all about that movie, right, later?
Well, yeah. It's about something that happened during that movie, and it's just kind of comical in the way that it kind of happened. But yeah.
Okay, so before we go too far, can you just describe the difference between a stand-in and a double?
Okay. Sometimes a stand-in can be a double, and I was in this case because I did look a lot like him at the time. We had the same haircut, a little bit different from the one that you can see. Your listeners can't see it, but you can. Anyway, so I looked a lot like him, and I was a very similar size. So stand-in is used for lighting. So quite simply, when the director of photography and the first assistant director and the director and all the heads of all the departments come out to see the rehearsal of the scene, they call out first team, which are the actors, the principals. They come out and they stage the scene, and then they're sent back to their trailers, and they call for second team. The stand-ins are second team. So second team, bring in second team, and we were supposed to be watching everything that they do and taking either physical notes, which a lot of people did, or just mental notes, so that when they say, okay, go to the desk and sit, if you're going to be a stand-in for a guy like George Clooney or any big star, you better know exactly how he sat and where his hand was and whether his legs were crossed or this or that and the other thing. And you go in and do it, and you rehearse the scene generally without the lines. And then they light you for each one of those shots. That's what a stand-in does. You're used for lighting. A double is when, in this case, George was shooting 3 or 4 days on ER, and then the balance of the week on on Batman and Robin. So on many days he couldn't be on the set of Batman and Robin, so they needed a double for him. And with Batman, when you're in the suit, it could be anybody. But when he was not Batman, he was Bruce Wayne. You had to be in a suit and this, that, and the other thing. And so I got to do really cool stuff. One of which was I got to, in the first 2 weeks that I was there, I got to kiss Elle Macpherson. I got to kick Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh my God.
I got to wear the bat suit. I got to drive the Batmobile. And one of the strangest things that ever happened to me in my life, Elle Macpherson, I was standing in for George. The camera was over her shoulder onto me for George. And it was in a very hot place. And she was wearing a gown that had no straps. And she was holding it up with one hand because she unzipped the back. It was very hot. And she was fanning her face with her sides. And finally, she took her hand off of the top. And something fell out that shouldn't have fallen out.
Oh, my gosh.
And of course, I saw it. And she said to me, "Did you see that?" And I said, "See what?" she goes, "Yes, you did. You saw that." And then the director of photography said, called me some name about something. And Elle Macpherson, being very cool, says, "Oh, who cares? I'm from Australia. If you've seen one, you've seen them all."
Oh, my
And
gosh.
of course, me, very Irish Catholic, very fair skinned. I was glowing red. And now the director of photography was kind of upset at me because George, A, doesn't blush, and B, he's tan as opposed to milky white like me. And so anyway, that was.
That is unbelievable. That is so funny, Joe. I don't think people have any idea that kind of stuff can go on with a stand-in, or you were the double then. I guess it doesn't really matter.
I was a stand-in and double, and when they told me in this one scene, they were over George onto Elle Macpherson, and so George had to lean in for the kiss, and so all they were seeing was the back of my head and my shoulders, and they said, "Okay, they do the kiss," and Elle Macpherson, I made eye contact, and she kind of shrugged her shoulders like, "Let's go," and I'm like, "Oh my God, I've been in LA for 2 weeks and I'm kissing Elle Macpherson." Which to your younger audience probably don't know. At that time, Elle Macpherson was on Sports Illustrated cover, the bathing suit issue, probably 5 times, 6 times.
Right. Every year.
Yeah, right.
Wow. That is so funny, Joe. So I was just thinking, one of the big differences between a double and a stand-in is that if you're a stand-in, no other real actors are with you ever. Right? Because you're just standing in for lighting purposes. But if you're doubling, you're with all the other regular actors. They're just not shooting, they're just shooting you to get the outline of your body or something, right?
Yes, exactly. So, yeah, I did scenes with, over the years, well, just look at George's credits and look who he was in it with. And I was in it with all those guys. And I have to say, 99, I can't think of one of them who wasn't like as cool as could be. I mean, they're just so cool.
Yeah.
I mean,
look, when you get to that place in your life, when you have success, you have a little bit of money, you have confidence and good looks, of course they're nice. What the hell are they going to be complaining about?
Yeah. But you'd be surprised. And you're right. When you get to that point, I was in a situation where there was a younger person who kind of gave me a little bit of the hi-hat, and I'm like, okay, whatever, moving on.
Wait, what do you mean? Like, what does that mean? Tell me again.
Like, what are you doing in here? Why isn't George here?
Yeah. I see. Yeah. Well, I did read that you were with George for 9 feature films and for 2 seasons of ER.
Yes.
And then you were also Ben Affleck's stand-in for 4 of his movies.
Yes. That happened. It was very, very, that's very rare too. I mean, you can have guys who stand in for multiple actors, like say on a TV show, or actors that aren't big stars, but I don't know any, and I'm not bragging. It was just another luck thing. I don't know any other.
What the hell, man? Did you hit some lottery or what's going on?
I think I did. During Ocean's 11, I got to know Matt Damon pretty well and Casey Affleck. And so then when George went to Canada to do Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, I kind of had some downtime. So I just kind of made a phone call or two. And then next thing you know, I'm standing in for Ben on Geely.
Shut the hell up, man. Get out of here. Get out
I'm
of here.
serious.
Now, I want to ask you something else, and we're getting into your story. You also serve as an adjunct professor at CMU there in Pittsburgh. And what did you teach there at CMU?
It was on-camera acting because you're from Pittsburgh and you know CMU's reputation. Their School of Drama, I guess, is always listed in top 5 in the world for acting. And but those young folks, as great of actors as they are, they have no experience on camera. So they would go to Donna Belichick's casting office for different casting calls. And, as good as they were, they kind of were falling flat, Actually, the complaint is, and this, everyone's too big.
Right. They're emoting. They're really putting it out there because they're used to being on a stage and they got to reach the back seat, the back row of the audience. But now you're going to have a camera 3 inches from your face and you're fucking screaming at them.
Exactly. So the head of the department called Donna up and said, hey, I heard you're doing this class over there. And I was doing it there. And so Donna called me up and said, hey, you want to go over to CMU? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And so this conversation happened, and they agreed that Donna was going to do this class for them. And so we left, and Donna said, what do you think? And I said, sounds great. She goes, when do you want to start? I said, me? I thought you were running it. She goes, no, I don't have time to do that. You're going to do it. And I'm like,
oh, that's
okay.
Hilarious.
So anyway, I was doing it, and it was really, really cool. And one of the reasons I thought it was really cool is you wonder how good these kids are, right? And within two sessions, the first thing they would notice is that they were doing like these weird things, and they would notice it. And like the next time they're on camera, or maybe the next time after that, they totally correct it. And to me, that was the thing that really, these people, they're like finely tuned machines they're finely tuned artists, and they really get what they're doing, and they can do that. And the difference between them and someone who, I'm exaggerating, but say community theater or whatever, it's just like, there's so much difference. And it's because they have devoted their young lives to this whole thing. And, it's really, it's unbelievable to see. Because I did this class for other people who were trying to be actors, who had no acting experience. And, you're just,
they didn't even know how to act to begin with.
They were all needles.
Yeah, because they were just beginning. They didn't even know how to act. So now you start dealing with professionals, and all you have to do is get them to adjust. And it's interesting because a lot of casting directors will say, I don't know if they say it out loud, but, they have you do it one way, and then they say, okay, I need you to just be a little warmer. And they say that if the actor doesn't repeat that back to the director, the odds are they're not going to do it right. Like that they always have to repeat back like, okay, so you want me to do a little warmer, but then what does that mean? Because warmer in the English language could mean 40 different things. Exactly. So they maybe have to make it into their verbiage. Like, so you mean warmer like kinder? And they'll say, no, I didn't mean warmer like that. I just meant like, calm down or something. You know what I mean? So there's this, somebody gives you the direction, and how do you take that in? And is it symbiotic for what they're really telling you? Yes.
Yeah. And another thing is confidence. They really know that they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And
I love that.
That's a big, big part of it. If you don't know that you know what you're doing, then you're just taking shots in the dark, and you might, in baseball, they say, someone ran into a home run. Because what they're saying is they really have no idea what they're doing. They just swung the bat and the ball hit it and it went out.
Right. It's like, because, I'm a comedian, and doing comedy, it's the same thing. It's all about the experience. And if you've been doing comedy for under 5 years, I'm probably not going to believe you. I mean, it depends on the comedian, but it just takes a long time. Okay, let's get back to you. I wanted to mention, before we go on, my father, Jack Blackburn, was an actor and a model in Pittsburgh for many years, and he always talked about Donna Belichick. Oh, I just talked to Donna. Oh, well, Donna has me doing this, and Donna has me doing that, and it was adorable. And my dad was
She is an icon, and she's great.
She is. And my dad was on billboards in Pittsburgh all the time because he had that look, kind of like your look, but even a little older, like in his 70s, with the white hair, but the perfect teeth. and jogging. He's jogging in the billboard, or he has his grandson at the bank and they're filling out, his first checking account or something. Anyway, my dad loved working in Pittsburgh, as I did. I worked with the talent group, and I also very much enjoyed it. All right, but let's get over to your story. Before we do, though, I wanted to remind you guys that Story Smash, the storytelling game show, is back. We're playing Story Smash every month in Los Angeles. Check out the website, storysmashshow.com, for the next show coming at you. I believe that's going to be April 7th in Santa Monica. And also, like I mentioned before, My Life in 3 Songs, it's going strong. I've got Lorraine Newman coming up on the show. I've got Patton Oswalt coming up on the show, and a lot of other great talents. So please follow My Life in 3 Songs. I beg of you. Seriously, you guys, look, you've known me for almost 13 years, and I've got you. I got you guys listening. And I need you guys because I need My Life in 3 Songs to take off. So you're my audience. I know you like me. And if I recommend this to you, you're supposed to believe me. Okay? MyLifeIn3Songs.com. Head over to Spotify, follow the show. And of course, StoryworthyPodcast.com. You'll find a lot of other information. And I have too many websites. That's the problem. All right, you guys, he's here right now. You've heard him talking, Joe Coyle. He is from Swickley, Pennsylvania, but he's done everything. He's been a paper boy, a journalism student, a university newspaper writer, photographer, a magazine junior executive, and here we go, a TV, film actor, and writer. He's also been a producer and a bartender and a lot of other things. He cracks me up. He wrote a great story, and it's called Just Trash, and that's a piece of fiction. It was published in 2022. He's also a great writer. Now, I first was introduced to him from the book called Beyond Where the Buses Run, stories that were published by the Oregon Greystone Press, and that's where Robert Crane has his stories. So anyway, that's where I first ran into your work, Joe, when you did the story Just Outside Lisbon, and that was a true story, right? That's your.
It's very autobiographical. It's as I guess most people's first venture into writing is. It's a story of a young guy who. Well, we meet him as an older gentleman, about my age, let's just say, and he is driving from Pittsburgh to Lisbon, Ohio, which is about an hour or so drive. And while he's driving there,
right,
he recalls, it's almost like he's saying to himself, how the heck did I ever end up here? And so he recalls how in his younger days he was a businessman in New York City, and he was living the life, and he was doing very well and having a great time and drinking and philandering and this, that, and the other thing. And then at some point he just had an epiphany. He said, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to do what I want to do, with no idea what he wanted to do. And then we cut to him on a case as a private executive for hire, where he's sent to some outpost in the wilds of northwestern Pennsylvania on some shady operation, and he fails kind of miserably. And cut back to where he is now, and through trial and error, he continue on some kind of path of weirdness, and he's doing this project for a company in the energy industry, and he has to go out and meet some strange character who claims to be Italian from Youngstown, Ohio, which is code for I'm connected with the mafia. And he meets this guy, and they just have a little interaction, and you don't know what happens from there. And I kind of leave you hanging. And the reason I do is because I guess in the end, my story hasn't ended, and this person's story hasn't ended, and we have no idea where it's going to head, but it seems kind of dangerous. One or the other is probably not going to come back out of those woods.
You, it's really interesting because you really are a serious writer. I was looking at your work at joecoyle.org, and, both there you've got the Beyond Where the Buses Run, those stories, and then also that Mount Hope magazine article from there. And both of those are really introspective. I mean, your writing is very smart. And were you writing back then when you were a stand-in, or when did the writing thing kick in?
Well, the friend of mine, funny you should ask, the friend of mine who invited me out to meet up with him in L.A., we were working on he was in New York that summer, and we were working on a screenplay. And we didn't have it finished. It still isn't finished, by the way. But co-writing is a challenge. But anyway, we had a great time trying to get there. And so he said, part of the pitch was, you can come out, I'll get your SAG card, we'll finish the screenplay. And so we went out there and we pounded away on the keys, and it never happened. But in the attempt of the doing, we became producers because, once again, at one point we said, listen, both college educated, both mature guys, both know what the heck's going on. What the heck are we doing? Before we leave this place, we've got to produce something. And we did. And we produced quite a few things. And it got to the point where we were like the low budget, no budget producers. We had meetings on stage 11 on Warner Brothers, which is where we shot ER, with young/new directors and writers who found out about us somehow. And we would have meetings with them. They would pitch us on why we should produce their film.
Wow.
And we turned down one after another for one reason or another. And finally, we did produce a feature film that was never released. It probably didn't deserve to be, but it was a hoot doing it. And it was called Can't Stop Dancing. And we convinced a few people from ER to be in it. We convinced Bob Odenkirk and his buddy from Mr. Show, and we had Janine Garofalo,
David
we had
Cross.
Margaret Cho. It goes on and on and
Yeah.
on. The people we convinced to be in this movie was just, we looked at each other every day and it's like, I can't believe we needed a guy. Listen to this. We needed a guy, just like a regular guy, but had a really good sense of humor. And someone said, let's try Fred Willard. And we're like, how are we going to get hold of Fred Willard? Someone somehow got Fred Willard's agent, called him up. He came out, worked 2 days for us, and was an absolute joy.
He's such
to
a
work
pro.
with.
He was such a pro, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
Wonderful
so
man.
that Can't Stop Dancing. If you Google it, you'll find it, and it was just a bizarre, very silly movie.
You have amazing memories. You've had a great life. I really want to get to your story here because we're running out of time. That's a joke. There's no time limit. It's a podcast. But I do want to ask you, how do you then transition back to Sewickley, Pennsylvania? I'm just saying specifically with the weather and the people because I really love surrounding myself around comedians and artists, people here in LA. And I never found that community in Pittsburgh. I found a tiny piece of it, like I said, like at the talent group through my father or through, but not like out here, obviously. So then what did you just say? I don't want to do that anymore. How do you not miss being on the Warner Brothers lot under the sun in Burbank? Like, how does that transfer to Sewickley?
Well, it's a bit of a transition, and we don't have enough time so I'll give you the bullet points as best I can. At the time, I was working for George and Ben. Both of them, their careers kind of, they took pauses. So I'm looking at the calendar and, it's like what's coming up and not much. And we recently had a daughter. And so now all of a sudden it's like, it's things become a lot more serious. And my wife just got into the DGA, Directors Guild of America, and they changed a real nuance in the rules that said that because they had too many people coming in as young assistant directors, and so they said that in addition to what you've already done, which is I think 600 days on set, which is a lot.
A lot.
That's if you have 200 business days a year, that's 3 years straight if you're working all the time.
All the time, right? And
so that's grueling task. On top of that, they said now you have to do, I think it was 300 days out of town on features or 300 days on commercials, which basically is if you every commercial is a 2-day shoot or 3-day shoot, that means you have to get hired, 100, do the math. You have to get hired 100 times or whatever.
Never.
So a little reality check was that, we've got to hunker down, move back to Pittsburgh, where Susan's family's from, Sewickley in particular, and we can get a house. We were living in a house in Van Nuys, and the house in Van Nuys
in Pittsburgh.
Exactly. I mean, if you saw our house, we could fit our Van Nuys house into our house in Pittsburgh, and our house in Pittsburgh is nothing special. Anyway, so we came back here, and the real world is very real, and it's very hard to transition back into. and it wasn't really working out. But fortunately, by the grace of God, the Philadelphia State Legislature decided to put in a film tax credit. So now Pennsylvania decided to compete with New Mexico, Louisiana, and places like that in Canada. And so instead of going to Canada to shoot something, or Louisiana or New Mexico, if you wanted something, northeastern looking, urban looking, or, Pittsburgh.
Sure.
Pittsburgh can play for almost anything
Mountains,
other
rivers,
than desert.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Pennsylvania, since that time, started getting all these films. And my wife has been working almost nonstop as an assistant director in Pittsburgh. So we thought we were walking away from the film business. The film business, strangely enough, followed us. And I've been able to get a few parts here and there. I got to teach a little bit. I got to do this, that, and the other thing. And I raised the kids. So I played Mr. Mom, which is probably the greatest role of my life.
Yeah, that's so exciting. That is so exciting. And so your wife got what she really wanted, but also she has her family. And then you step in because you already lived this wild and crazy George Clooney, Matt Damon life. And you come in and say, okay, I'll hunker down, get these kids grown. You go work your ass off.
Yeah, I traveled with the circus like most people will never get a chance to. And
all right, listen, you guys find out a lot more about Joe over at his website, joecoyle.org. All right, you guys, wherever you are, put your hands together for the very talented Joe Coyle.
So my story is the story of a day in the life of working as a stand-in on Batman and Robin. And it actually starts at the end of the day. The director of photography, when you're standing in, one of the things that they want you to do is to have color cover. So if you know that your guy is wearing whatever the next day, you can either kind of wear something like that, or you can rely on wardrobe to give you something that's generally kind of ratty, and all it is the color. So you try to wear your own stuff. And the easy part about Batman and Robin was most of it had a black thing to it. So I would wear like a black sweatshirt and black pants, and I'd go to work. And then they'd give me something to match that. So anyway, so wearing black every day was part of the job. And then additionally, the director of photography was very anal, and we being me and the Robin stand, and we had to wear masks. But inside the eyes of the mask, you could see our white skin. And that drove him crazy. So he said, you guys have to go to makeup every morning and put black makeup around your eyes. So we go there, and they would they'd pack it on pretty thick and pretty wide just to make sure they didn't get in trouble, by seeing some of our white skin. So at the end of the day, we had to get this stuff off. And so it got to be a real pain in the neck because we were shooting down in Long Beach at San Pedro, and the drive back to the valley was pretty long. You're sitting in traffic. So we're like, forget that. We're not going to go to makeup and have to wait behind all the actors to get our makeup taken off. We're just going to hop in the car and go home. So we drive home every day with our Batman and Robin makeup on.
Jesus, well, I can already see this problem coming. There's two masked men going down the 405. I see it.
Listen to this. Right? So we're driving down the 405, and we get, or up the 405, whatever. North. And then we get off at Ventura Boulevard to go into the valley. And all of a sudden, a cop is behind us. And Robin, who's driving the car, we were carpooling, he starts freaking out. And I'm saying, what's the problem? He goes, my taillight's out. I'm like, so what's the big deal? Well, he's like really freaking out. As it turns out, he had some things to be worried about. But I said, well, do you have like a gun or weed in the car or anything like that? And he says, no. I said, what's the problem? He says, dude, you don't understand. I just can't get locked up. I'm like, well, no, neither can I, right? So he decides, a very non-Batman decision, but maybe a Robin decision. He decides he's going to cut off the boulevard and start cutting through, Van Nuys, over that area, right? Which is, some neighborhoods are better than others. So he's making lefts and making rights to see if the cop's following him. Well, the cop is following him. But he doesn't turn his lights on. He's just following us. And so Robin slows down a little bit. I mean, it got to the point where it was almost like an OJ-esque slow speed chase through the valley at around 7 o'clock on a weeknight. So eventually we get to Sunny Slope, which is where I lived. We turn down Sunny Slope, and this guy's coming down Sunny Slope, and Sunny Slope ended right there. So there's only one reason to be going down Sunny Slope, and that was following us. Now he's like really getting upset. So he pulls into my driveway, and he's sweating bullets. And my roommate, one of my roommates in the house, he kind of like weed a little bit more than he needed to. And so he rolls the blinds open, sees the cop behind us. At this point, the cop has his lights on. This guy shuts the blinds, and he's freaking out inside, which I don't know at this point, but I'm expecting. Cop gets out of the car, comes up to Robin. Robin has the window rolled down, hands him his license and registration, and the cop shines a flashlight in both of our eyes. And still at this point, we're both nervous. We don't know what's going on. So he goes back to the car, and he says, I'll be back in a minute. Well, it was much longer than a minute. And finally he comes back, and by the time he comes back, I realize what's going on. I say to Robin, I said, dude, take a look in your rearview mirror. And he goes, I see the cop. No, pointing at yourself. And he's like, what? Look at us. We've got a mask on. We're dressed in black. We both have backpacks. My backpack's between my legs, right? And he says, oh, shoot. So the guy comes back up and says, where are you guys coming from? And now Robin, who was very Robin, and he tried to explain, well, you have to see, like, we're stand-ins. We work on Batman and Robin. He stands in for Batman. I stand in for Robin. And the guy's like, yeah, right. So he goes back to the car again, and I realize I have my security badge in my bag. So when he goes back, I reach into my bag, get the security badge out, and I tell Robin to do the same thing. Well, our security badges have us in our masks. I mean, in like the cowl. I have the cowl on, and it says Joe Coyle,
Batman.
Batman stand-in, and his says Robin stand-in. Well, the guy, he thought that was pretty funny. And when he came back and he says, all right, guys, fix your tail light and don't work too hard, guys, something like that. And he drove away. And so we got off the hook. But I went into the house, and my roommate said he threw all kinds of
threw it away.
Weed down the garbage disposal.
That sucks.
And I said, all of it? He said, well, I've got something in the fridge.
Yeah. Like a real stoner. He's like, I'm not that dumb.
Oh, yeah. He had something hid behind the broccoli or something. I don't know. Anyway, so that's just a story. I just think it's a funny story. It gives you an idea of what you have to do to be a stand-in. You have to wear color cover or wardrobe. You have to sometimes put makeup on. They started putting makeup on me because I'm not as olive. I'm nowhere near as olive as George. And especially after we play basketball at lunch, we come in and I would be purple. And so, so it's a lot of fun when you're working on a big movie with a big star. It's a lot of fun. And then with George, we just got to know each other more and more. And then I traveled with him on other movies and eventually got into his contract where as part of the deal, I went with him. And then on Ocean's 11, I stayed in the Bellagio for 5 weeks with like the cast.
Wow.
And the guys on either side of me were either security guards for those guys or those guys.
Wow. Did your wife, was she with you then, or your girlfriend, or who?
We had just gotten engaged just before we started Ocean's 11. And people asked me, why didn't you have a bachelor party? And I said, I had a 5-week bachelor party in the Bellagio on Ocean's 11.
No kidding. Oh, my gosh, that must have been fun. Wow.
It was fun.
Good times, man. Yeah. Good times. And it is interesting as a stand-in because I would think that almost the hardest thing to do, and it depends on the person, but especially for me, would be that you really, they don't want you to talk. Like, just don't say a fucking thing because they're just trying to move you around, right? Like, please, you're just our pawn in a game. Please just move. Let us move you around. We need to get our work done. Is that a hard part? Was that hard for you, or did you know going in, just shut up?
Well, I was told very specifically, do not talk. And the first assistant director on Batman and Robin I think he was an ex-Marine. He was a taskmaster. He was one tough dude. But when you're doing $100 million movie and like everything, you're judged by whether you get your day or not. And he got his day no matter what. And meaning whatever was on the schedule for the day, you get done. And so he was really good. So I was trained really well by him. And then working on ER, once again, they were very, very strict. It wasn't like we're just going to shoot willy nilly. We have a plan and we're sticking to it. And so, and then in doing that, you get to stand there with all those departments head and you hear their conversation. I would say to any young person that if you could get a job, and that's the hard part, But if you could get a job like I had, you will learn film production like no one could ever possibly teach you, because it's all about, there are artists like the Coen brothers and stuff like that, but all their art has been done in advance.
Yeah.
So when they come in, they know exactly what they're doing.
People
the Coen
forget
brothers
about the
are the most
pre-production.
efficient. I'm sorry?
People forget about the pre-production that goes into it. In other words, before they shoot, whether it be a movie or a commercial or anything, even like, especially because I've come from the commercial world, I've done a bunch of commercials, and it's like I'm the last thing plugged in. They've been working on this campaign for 9 months. Now the advertisers are going to fly to LA. They're going to stay at Shutters on the Beach in Santa Monica. And this is like their Christmas Day is every day, because this is what they've been waiting for to make this happen. And you are a tiny little part of it. And if you want to venture off in any other direction or talk out of turn, then just leave, because there's thousands of more people behind you.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, it's hard to keep your mouth shut because, it just is. But I will say this: over time, while working with George and then eventually with Ben, they would engage me in conversations. So, like speak when spoken to. I wouldn't start saying to George, what do you think about the Lakers?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He might say to me, what do you think about the Lakers? And I would give a quick response. And then me, being me, I would throw him a softball so he could hit it out of the park with a joke. I was the setup guy.
You're a nice guy. You're the straight man. That was sweet.
I was the straight man. I was George's Joey Bishop.
What's important to note about everything we just said is that none of that's personal. It's not like we don't value Joe Coyle or we don't want to hear from him, but it's just in this game, we're the filmmakers and we need to put these things in play. So it's nothing personal, but shut up, like that.
Yes.
And then the other thing I want to ask you is, was it hard to pay attention during the rehearsals? What was that like? Because you did have to think like, okay, I just saw him walk to the file cabinet, then he turned, and then he went over to the desk and he picked up the phone. Is it kind of like that?
Yeah, and I would see other guys and girls taking notes, and I couldn't do that. I mean, they do diagrams and the whole thing, but I think all I need to do is screw up once in front of people, and then I don't like that. It that affects me. So very early on, I fell asleep at the wheel a couple of times, got called on it in front of everybody, and you move on or not. I moved on and tried my best not to screw up again.
Yeah, but you're saying you made the wrong move.
Or forgot something, or looked the other way, looked the wrong way. You know what I mean? Things like that,
Yeah. My dad, like I said, worked a lot in Pittsburgh, and he did stand-in work for Richard Gere. Because my dad had the same silver hair, and he would stand in for Richard Gere, and he was used in some of the, I guess you would say double, now that we're talking about it, in that they'd show the car driving away, but it wasn't Richard Gere, it was my dad.
Yeah.
It's so
and it's
funny.
Weird because when you double someone, people say, well, you don't really look that much like him. But if it's, how many frames per second, you might be in 1/3 of those frames. It's just a quick blink. But
it's
with that said,
it's more wardrobe, right?
Wardrobe. Yeah. And if you expect George Clooney to walk by, like for instance on Perfect Storm, with a beard and that flannel shirt and the John Deere hat on and the overalls, then Joe Coyle walks by. I mean, so many times I was asked for autographs. They thought I was George when I was walking from base camp to the dock.
Sure.
You know what I mean? They thought I was George. And you're like trying to tell them, and they're like, no. And then finally I said, listen, I'm a stand-in and it's double. And they say, well, can you give me his autograph? Or give me your autograph? And I'm like, yeah, sure, but it doesn't mean anything. And a Teamster told me once, whatever you do not belittle that or shy away from that, because this is they're going to tell someone they got George Clooney stand-in's autograph, and that's going to mean something to them.
That's right.
And
yeah.
And it's real. It's true, and it's valid. And I did it. I liked it. It was kind of fun.
It's very valid because to us, it's just blue collar work. But to other people, you're making movie magic, as it were. And one of our greatest exports in the country, I guess, would be movies. I think we export 80% to the entire world, or 80% of the movies made in the world are here in this town.
Yes. I would buy that. Yeah.
So we're going to wrap it up in, sorry, go ahead.
So, I mean, it was fun. It was interesting. It was educational. And you could really learn a lot by being around all those people. One of the really cool things about the whole thing is you almost become like a piece of furniture. So you're privy to conversations because people don't realize that you're there. And you hear things like very open conversations about things that not only about film production, but maybe gossip or this or that, the other thing. And so as a writer, it's so much. There's so much there. There's so much there.
Treasure trove. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. So much.
I'd recommend it to anyone who has the time.
Yeah. Right. Before we get going, I wanted to ask you, when you heard about the accident last year on the film Rust with Alec Baldwin accidentally killing the DP, did you, when people hear that, you knew, I mean, I didn't know so much because I haven't been on sets like that, but you must have known exactly, did you picture that right away, what happened?
I did. Yeah, and that's a real shame obviously for everybody, and the victims for sure. There's so much that has been said that's accurate, and I really don't want to get into it too much. A friend of ours was involved in some way with it, and we had another friend involved in another tragic incident quite a few years ago. And all I can say is that just like in any job, sport, endeavor, it's kind of a joke. People say this when they're taking shortcuts at work or doing other things, and it's not a joke. Safety first. Mm-hmm. Safety first. There's anyone getting harmed in any way, shape, or form is not acceptable anywhere, but in a workplace for sure. Because you know what? The reason people are going to work now, when you're young, you go to work in the movies because it's cool. But when you're married and with a kid or kids, you're going to work to bring home the bacon.
Right. It's a union
to send the
job.
kid to school, to go on vacation, whatever it may be. And everyone deserves to go home the way they left. And in that situation, I'm not giving you – it hurt personally because we knew someone. But, yes, my wife and I really we knew a lot. We've been on sets with guns, and it's very serious business.
That was my next question. Well, I've been on many, many sets, but there's never been a gun on a set ever. Yeah. So what is that? What is that? If there's a gun on set, what are the safety measures you've seen or witnessed?
Well, if I give my opinion on that specifically, it may make me sound like I'm blaming someone. So all I'm going to say is this going forward. I think with the technology that we have, and I'm sure armorers and stunt people and maybe directors and producers will disagree with me, but I feel safe saying that with the technology that we have, you can have something that appears to be a weapon look exactly like a weapon. Stunt guys have them because they give them to stand-ins. Mm-hmm, they look like the weapon, but it's not a weapon. And you could add in the sound and the visuals to make it look like the gun was fired, someone was hit, blood came out. That all can be done in post.
Yeah.
And
Of course.
I think if there are some shortcomings in that, like, oh, that really doesn't look like blood, or that really doesn't look like something was
Explosive.
discharged from that thing,
Yeah.
I think the audiences will
Forgive.
accept that, and technology will get better, just like it got better and everything else. I mean, you see movies now where if it was made 10 years ago, you'd be like, that looks so fake.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But audiences accept that.
Yeah. So what is a stand-in gun like? I mean, is it a solid piece of because it has to have weight to it, right?
Yeah, it's usually like a heavy rubber kind of thing that looks, it depends on how picky the director of photography or the director is, how accurate it has to be. But if there's a handgun, a stunt guy and or armorer will have in his truck any number of, stunt guns. They're not going to give a stuntman a gun that even can fire a bullet, let alone be loaded. I mean,
and that's what it should be. And that's what it
could,
should be.
I mean, after what we saw happen, it could happen, but there are so many safeguards. I mean, no armor or prop guy would, in his right mind, would hand a stand-in a weapon that even could shoot.
Yeah. Oh boy. Now, they were saying on that film set of Rust that they were doing target shooting out in the, because they had horses, they're on this ranch and they're like shooting bottles off of, kind of screwing around on break and stuff. It's like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. They were saying everything about, budget and this and that and the other thing. There are checks and balances that are in place that everyone does what they're supposed to do. Nothing like this should happen again. I'm sure you remember 20 years ago or so, or more, probably at this point, when
Brandon Lee,
when Bruce Lee's kid, and I remember when that happened, and I sat with a stunt coordinator at lunch during Batman and Robin, and he said that in his opinion, the reason that happened was because I think it was a non-union set, and so the producers were pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. Which when it's non-union, you can do whatever you want. The unions serve a very specific purpose. I think you could say this overall, but in the film business, they make sure that the film crews are not run into the ground. Right. Because if you are, something's going to happen. Someone's going to fall off a ladder. Right. Someone's going to electrocute it. A fire's going to start. Someone's going to get shot. Someone's going to get in an accident driving home, which has happened. All these things have happened. And so the DGA, I think, and the camera union for sure, is really putting pressure on the producers to limit the hours to something reasonable. I mean, most people don't know, I'm going to go to work in the movies. This is going to be great. They have no idea what they're getting into. No one in the right mind.
Because it's 14-hour days. I mean, 12 is normal, and usually 14.
Yeah, if it's 12, then you have to get there early for hair, makeup, and wardrobe, and then you have to,
take it off at the end,
get
or
off.
not.
And so the crew guys, they have to get there before you.
Yeah.
And they leave after you. And then the ADs are generally the first ones there and the last ones to leave. So my wife, she's worked many, many, many 16-hour days, 16-hour plus days.
Yeah, you just kind of sleep. It's just the project for a couple of months, whatever it's going to be. Because it's been written and it's been thought out. There's been pre-production. You're going into this hole. And that's, you accept that because it's going to end. But that's also what makes it so special because it's a very specific product and it stands alone. The film is so much, in ways, it's so much more exciting than television or series, because one film, it's such a body of work, one book, one album. It's just one thing. And it's important because we really are entertaining the whole flipping planet, man.
Yeah. One of the things I like about film is that you have 100+ people from all walks of life, backgrounds, who are brought together for one single purpose, and that is to complete this project. And whether you like that person, you don't like that person, or whatever it may be, and the arguments and disagreements come up, but you're always working towards making the day
and getting it done.
Getting to the end. And it's really pretty cool. And that's why people, when they're done a project or they're done their career, it's almost like post-traumatic stress. You're like, what in the world do I do now?
Yeah.
Because that is just such a level of focus.
Yeah. Well, you move back to Sewickley, you raise a family. Are your kids going to school? Do they go to college yet?
My daughter is a freshman in college, and my son is a junior at Quaker Valley High School.
Aw, that's very nice. What's the mascot at Quaker Valley? I can't remember.
It's a Quaker, but there's no Quaker that runs around. You know what I mean? It's not like you have a lion running around.
There's not.
There's no one. There's no big-headed Quaker running around.
There's no mascot? They've got to have a Quaker mascot.
They may have at some point, but they don't know.
I live across the street from a high school, and they're the barristers. That's the mascot, a barrister, which is like a judge or a lawmaker.
That's pretty funny.
So what is that? Yeah, what is that?
That's crazy. I thought Quaker was boring. Barrister takes it to the next level.
All right, man. Well, this has been so much fun. Really, you are fascinating. What an interesting person. I'm going to tell Bob Crane he was right. You were a fantastic guest.
Can I interrupt?
And thank you so much. Yeah.
And this is a plug for you. And I'm not doing it just to plug you. But when Bob told me you were doing the 3-song thing,
yeah,
that is like such an awesome idea. Everybody's got 3 songs. I mean, the hard part would be limiting.
Thank you so much.
But if you had to pick 3 songs, my life in 3 songs, that is genius. I'm telling you, that's genius.
Thank you so much. I feel like it is too. And every comedian I approach, they're all enthusiastic about it. So like I approach them, they say yes, and I say, okay, get your 3 songs together and get back to me, and then we'll record. It's just like that. But then I'm not hearing back from them. You know why? They can't pick their 3.
Seriously. Seriously, it's like picking your
so
in baseball, picking your walk-up song. It's like, well, it depends on how I feel today, or what's your favorite movie. Well, from day to day, minute to minute, hour to hour, it changes. So you're going to be defined by these 3 songs. That's tough. But I like it. Yeah.
But for me, and that's why I zeroed in on just comedians, I'm talking to comedians because they're such thought provokers. You know, comedians, it's all about the truth. So when you see a comedian you really like, what you like about them in one sense or another is that who you're looking at is exactly who that person is. They're very honest. So now we want to go back in the 3 songs that have impacted them. Well, most all of them go back to under the age of 15. I mean, everybody goes young. Because music and comedy are so intertwined. I mean, musicians love comedians and comedians want to be rock stars and back and forth. They're very symbiotic, musicians and comedians. So I just feel like it tells me a lot when Greg Proops talks about the songs that, you know, that impacted him. Or Judy Gold told me about the song that she loves so much called, The Look of Love. Do you remember The Look of Love by Dusty Springfield? Mm-hmm. And it's like a sachet romantic kind of a, oh my God. And then it just puts you into a time and a place. And when somebody tells me their songs, I can't not validate it because it means so much. So now, like if you go to mylifein3songs.com, I have a playlist and you can listen to all the songs that people have brought to the table. And now when I hear those songs over, I go right back to their stories. And every song is more important to me now.
That's really pretty cool.
Thanks, Joe. Thank you.
I'm jealous.
Think of your 3 songs. Thank you very much. I'm jealous that you spent so much time with George Clooney. I don't want to talk about it. All right, you guys. Again, check out Joe Coyle over at joecoyle.org. And I am back. And 2023 is going to be full of brand new stories. So again, thanks so much for supporting Storyworthy. Check me out on all the socials at Storyworthy. And once again, on behalf of the very talented Joe Coyle, my name is Christine Blackburn saying, make it a Storyworthy week.
Thanks for joining us on the Storyworthy podcast. We'll be back next week with all new stories. Subscribe to Storyworthy on iTunes and visit the Storyworthy website at storyworthypodcast.com.
The holidays start here at Baker's with a variety of options to celebrate traditions old and new. You could do a classic herb-roasted turkey or spice it up and make turkey tacos. Serve up a go-to shrimp cocktail or use Simple Truth wild-caught shrimp for your first Cajun risotto. Make creamy mac and cheese or a spinach artichoke fondue from our selection of Murray's cheese. No matter how you shop, Baker's has all the freshest ingredients to embrace all your holiday traditions. Baker's, fresh for everyone.